UFC fighters who almost became champions. Dustin Poirier is widely regarded as one of the greatest fighters in UFC history to never become an undisputed champion, and his journey through mixed martial arts is a story built on resilience, evolution, and constant battles against elite competition. Born on January 19, 1989, in Lafayette, Louisiana, Poirier grew up in a tough environment that helped shape his mentality early in life. Fighting became both an outlet and a purpose, and by the time he turned professional in 2009, he was already showing the kind of aggression and finishing ability that would later define his style. He quickly built a strong record on the regional scene, earning a reputation as a dangerous and exciting fighter, which ultimately led to his signing with the UFC in 2011. Poirier began his UFC career in the featherweight division, where he immediately made an impact. He secured impressive wins over fighters like Max Holloway, Pablo Garza, and Diego Brandao, showcasing his aggressive striking and submission skills. At that stage, his record was steadily improving, and he looked like a legitimate contender in the making. However, losses to top fighters such as Chan Sung Jung and Conor McGregor exposed flaws in his defense and composure, forcing him to rethink his approach to the sport. These setbacks became a turning point in his career, leading to one of the most important decisions he would ever make, moving up to the lightweight division in 2015. The move to lightweight transformed Poirier into a completely different fighter. Free from the exhausting weight cuts, he became stronger, more durable, and more technically refined. He announced his arrival in the division with a dominant knockout victory over Carlos Diego Ferreira, and from there, he began building one of the most impressive resumes in the sport. He defeated fighters like Yancy Medeiros, Joseph Duffy, and Bobby Green, showing noticeable improvements in his striking defense, footwork, and overall fight IQ. As Poirier climbed the rankings, the level of competition increased, but he continued to rise to the occasion. He earned a hard-fought win over Jim Miller and engaged in a thrilling rivalry with Eddie Alvarez, where their first fight ended in a no contest before Poirier secured a decisive finish in the rematch. He then faced Justin Gaethje in one of the most brutal fights in UFC history, surviving heavy damage to win by TKO, a performance that further established him as one of the toughest fighters in the division. His journey to the title reached a major milestone when he fought Max Holloway for the interim lightweight championship. In that bout, Poirier delivered one of the best performances of his career, outstriking Holloway over 5 rounds to win the interim belt and prove he belonged among the elite. This victory earned him a unification bout against the undefeated champion Khabib Nurmagomedov. Despite showing heart and even threatening with a guillotine choke, Poirier was ultimately submitted in the 3rd round, falling short of becoming the undisputed champion. Refusing to give up, Poirier rebuilt himself once again and returned to the top of the division. One of the defining chapters of his career came in his rivalry with Conor McGregor. After losing their first encounter years earlier, Poirier avenged that defeat with a knockout victory in their rematch, showcasing his evolution as a fighter. He followed it up with another win over McGregor, this time via doctor stoppage, further strengthening his position as a top contender and earning another shot at the title. Poirier's second opportunity at undisputed gold came against Charles Oliveira for the vacant lightweight belt. In the opening round, Poirier had success, landing clean strikes and putting pressure on Oliveira. But as the fight progressed, Oliveira's grappling took control, leading to a submission victory and another heartbreaking loss for Poirier in a title fight. Once again, he had come incredibly close, only to fall short at the final step. Even after multiple title fight losses, Poirier remained one of the most dangerous fighters in the division. He secured a major win over Michael Chandler in a thrilling fight that highlighted his durability and submission skills, and later delivered an impressive finish against Benoit Saint-Denis, proving that he was still competing at an elite level. These victories once again positioned him near the top of the lightweight division, leading to yet another title opportunity, this time against the dominant champion Islam Makhachev. Facing Makhachev, Poirier entered the fight as an experienced veteran with nothing left to prove but everything still to gain. Throughout the bout, he showed resilience and determination, defending takedowns, landing significant strikes, and pushing the champion into difficult moments. However, Makhachev's elite grappling and control ultimately made the difference, and Poirier was submitted, marking another painful chapter in his pursuit of undisputed gold. Despite the loss, his performance once again demonstrated his toughness and ability to compete at the highest level, even against one of the most dominant champions of his era. Over the course of his career, Dustin Poirier has built a record that includes more than 30 professional victories, with wins over multiple former champions and top contenders. His resume features victories over names like Holloway, McGregor, Gaethje, Alvarez, and Chandler, making it one of the strongest in the lightweight division. More importantly, his career has been defined by his willingness to take on the toughest challenges, never avoiding dangerous opponents and always stepping into high-stakes fights. Dustin Poirier's legacy is not defined solely by titles, but by the level of competition he has faced and the performances he has delivered. He has been part of some of the most memorable fights in UFC history, earning the respect of fans and fighters alike. While he never became the undisputed champion, his journey represents a different kind of greatness, one built on perseverance, heart, and the constant pursuit of excellence. In a division filled with elite talent, Poirier remained at the top for years, proving time and time again that he belongs among the best to ever compete in mixed martial arts, even if the undisputed belt was the one achievement that always remained just out of reach. Tony Ferguson's career is one of the most unique and heartbreaking stories in MMA history. A story of a fighter who built unstoppable momentum, reached the absolute peak of his division, and yet never fought for the undisputed UFC title during his prime. Born on February 12, 1984 in Oxnard, California, Ferguson grew up with a wrestling background that would later become a key part of his unorthodox fighting style. Before transitioning fully into MMA, he competed in collegiate wrestling, developing the kind of toughness and conditioning that would define his career. However, unlike many traditional fighters, Ferguson was never a conventional athlete. His style, personality, and approach to fighting were different from the start, blending creativity, chaos, and relentless pressure into something that opponents struggled to prepare for. Ferguson entered the UFC through the Ultimate Fighter 13, where he immediately stood out. Fighting under the guidance of Brock Lesnar, Ferguson showcased his aggressive striking, submissions, and mental toughness, ultimately winning the season and earning a UFC contract. From that moment, his journey in the lightweight division began. And although his early record had some ups and downs, it quickly became clear that Ferguson was not like other fighters. His ability to push a relentless pace, absorb damage, and break opponents mentally made him one of the most dangerous fighters in the division. As his career progressed, Ferguson began building one of the most impressive win streaks in UFC history. He defeated tough opponents such as Rafael dos Anjos, Edson Barboza, and Josh Thompson, each time showcasing his unpredictable offense and incredible durability. His style was chaotic but effective, mixing elbows from every angle, constant pressure, and a dangerous submission game. What made Ferguson special was not just his skill set, but his mindset. He thrived in chaos, often turning fights into exhausting wars where his opponents would eventually break under the pace. Ferguson's record continued to improve as he climbed the rankings, and he added more high-profile wins to his resume. He defeated Lando Venata in a short-notice war, survived adversity, and secured a submission victory. He then dominated Rafael dos Anjos in a 5-round fight, proving his cardio and championship-level pace. Another standout performance came against Kevin Lee, where Ferguson showcased his resilience by overcoming early grappling pressure to secure a submission win and claim the interim lightweight title. At that point, his win streak had reached 12 consecutive victories, one of the longest in UFC history, and he was widely considered the most deserving contender for the undisputed belt. The natural next step was a title unification bout against the dominant champion Khabib Nurmagomedov. This fight was booked multiple times and was one of the most anticipated matchups in MMA history, as it would have pitted Ferguson's chaotic offense against Khabib's dominant grappling. However, due to injuries, weight cut issues, and unexpected circumstances, The fight was canceled not once, but multiple times. Each cancellation felt like a missed opportunity, and over time, it became one of the greatest what-if matchups in the sport. Despite these setbacks, Ferguson continued to fight and win. He defended his position at the top of the division and maintained his incredible momentum. However, everything changed in 2020. During the global pandemic, Ferguson accepted a short-notice fight against Justin Gaethje for the interim title after the original fight with Khabib fell through once again. Leading into that bout, Ferguson was still riding his legendary win streak, and many believed he would finally secure his long-awaited shot at the undisputed title. The fight against Gaethje marked a turning point in Ferguson's career. In a brutal 5-round battle, Gaethje's precision striking and power proved too much. Ferguson absorbed an incredible amount of damage, but for the first time in years, he could not turn the tide. The fight was stopped in the 5th round, ending his 12-fight win streak in devastating fashion. More than just a loss, it felt like the end of Ferguson's prime, as the momentum he had built over years disappeared in a single night. After that defeat, Ferguson's career took a downward turn. He faced Charles Oliveira and was dominated on the ground for 3 rounds. He then fought Beneil Dariush, suffering another loss in a competitive fight. As time went on, Ferguson continued to face elite competition, including Michael Chandler, who delivered a highlight reel knockout that became one of the most shocking moments in UFC history. These losses were difficult to watch for fans who had followed Ferguson's rise, as they contrasted sharply with the unstoppable force he once was. Despite the setbacks, Ferguson's record remains one of the most impressive in lightweight history, with over 25 professional wins and victories over top-tier fighters across multiple eras. His 12-fight win streak, interim title, and consistent performances against elite opponents cemented his place among the best lightweights of all time. However, what makes his story so compelling is not just what he achieved, but what he never got the chance to achieve. Tony Ferguson was at one point considered the most dangerous fighter in the division, a nightmare matchup for anyone, including the champion. His style, cardio, and unpredictability made him a unique challenge that many believed even Khabib would struggle with. Yet, due to circumstances beyond his control, that fight never happened, and Ferguson never received the undisputed title shot he had earned through years of dominance. Joseph Benavidez is one of the most consistent and respected fighters in the history of the lighter weight classes, yet his career is forever defined by one painful truth. He was always close to the title, but never quite able to capture it. Born on July 31, 1984, in San Antonio, Texas, Benavidez didn't start as a highly touted prospect with massive expectations. Instead, his rise was built on hard work, discipline, and a relentless drive to improve. He developed his foundation in wrestling and later expanded into mixed martial arts, where his speed, cardio, and well-rounded skill set quickly made him stand out. Turning professional in 2006, Benavidez began building an impressive record, showcasing not just his technical ability, but also his fight IQ and composure under pressure. Before joining the UFC, Benavidez made a name for himself in the WEC, the promotion that housed many of the best lighter weight fighters in the world at the time. It was there that he truly began to prove he belonged among the elite. Competing in the bantamweight division, he earned victories over high-level opponents and established himself as a top contender. However, even in these early stages, a pattern began to emerge. When facing the absolute best, such as Dominic Cruz, Benavidez came up just short, losing competitive fights that showed how close he was to championship level, yet also highlighted the fine margins that separated him from the very top. When the UFC absorbed the WEC, Benavidez transitioned into the promotion as one of the top bantamweights in the world. He continued to perform at a high level, defeating tough opponents and maintaining an impressive record. However, it was the creation of the flyweight division that would define his career. Dropping down to 125 pounds, Benavidez immediately became one of the top contenders in the newly formed division. His speed, technique, and experience gave him an advantage over many of his opponents, and it wasn't long before he found himself fighting for the inaugural UFC flyweight title. In that historic fight, Benavidez faced Demetrius Johnson, one of the greatest fighters in MMA history. The bout was competitive, with both fighters showcasing high-level skills, but Johnson ultimately secured the victory, leaving Benavidez just short of becoming the first flyweight champion. Despite the loss, Benavidez remained a top contender, and over the next few years, he continued to build an incredible resume. He defeated fighters like Ian McCall, Jussier Formiga, and Tim Elliott, proving time and time again that he was one of the best in the division. His consistent success earned him another title shot against Demetrius Johnson. This rematch was a crucial moment in his career, a chance to finally overcome the obstacle that had kept him from the title. However, the outcome was even more decisive than the first fight, as Johnson delivered a knockout victory, once again denying Benavidez his championship dream. For many fighters, such a loss might have marked the beginning of the end, but Benavidez refused to fade away. Instead, he continued to compete at an elite level, adding more wins to his record and remaining firmly in the title conversation. As the flyweight division evolved, new contenders emerged, but Benavidez remained a constant presence at the top. He earned victories over fighters like Henry Cejudo in a closely contested bout early in their careers, further highlighting his elite status. He also secured wins against John Moraga and Dustin Ortiz, continuing to prove that he could compete with anyone in the division. His record steadily improved, and by this point, he had established himself as one of the most accomplished fighters to never hold a UFC title. After Demetrius Johnson left the UFC, the flyweight division entered a new era, and Benavidez once again found himself in position to fight for the vacant title. This time, he faced Deiveson Figueiredo for the belt. It was perhaps his final opportunity to achieve what had eluded him for so long. However, the fight ended in disappointment, as Figueiredo secured a stoppage victory, once again leaving Benavidez just short of the championship. A rematch followed, but the result was the same, closing the door on what had been one of the most persistent title pursuits in UFC history. Throughout his career, Joseph Benavidez compiled an outstanding record with over 25 professional victories against some of the best fighters in the world. His resume includes wins over top contenders across multiple eras, and his consistency at the highest level is something few fighters can match. He was never an easy fight for anyone, combining speed, technique, and cardio with a relentless work ethic that kept him competitive for years. What makes Benavidez's story so compelling is not just the number of times he fought for the title, but how close he came each time. He was never outclassed or unworthy of those opportunities. On the contrary, he earned every title shot through hard-fought victories and consistent performances. Yet, each time he reached the final step, something stood in his way, whether it was the dominance of Demetrius Johnson or the rise of new champions like Figueiredo. Joseph Benavidez represents a unique kind of legacy in MMA. He may never have held the UFC belt, but his career is a testament to perseverance, consistency, and elite-level competition. He spent years at the top of one of the most competitive divisions in the sport, facing champions, contenders, and future legends, and always proving that he belonged among them. Urijah Faber is one of the most influential figures in the history of lighter weight classes, a pioneer who helped bring attention, respect, and legitimacy to divisions that were once overlooked. Yet despite his legendary status and undeniable impact on the sport, his UFC career is defined by one lingering absence. He never became a UFC champion. Born on May 14, 1979, in Isla Vista, California, Faber grew up as a natural athlete, excelling in wrestling during his high school and collegiate years. He later competed at the University of California, Davis, where he built a strong foundation in grappling, discipline, and competitive mindset, all of which would become essential elements of his fighting style. Faber began his professional MMA career in 2003, quickly establishing himself as a dynamic and exciting fighter. His early record was built on a combination of explosive athleticism, powerful wrestling, and a dangerous submission game, particularly his guillotine choke, which became one of his signature weapons. As he gained experience, Faber's confidence and skill set grew, and it wasn't long before he found himself competing for a title. His breakthrough moment came in the WEC, where he faced Cole Escovedo for the featherweight championship. Faber delivered a dominant performance, capturing the title and announcing himself as one of the best fighters in the world at 145 pounds. As the WEC featherweight champion, Faber became the face of the division. He defended his belt multiple times, defeating top contenders such as Dominic Cruz, Jens Pulver, and Mike Brown in their first encounter. During this period, Faber built an impressive record and established himself as a dominant champion, known for his speed, cardio, and ability to finish fights. His reign in the WEC solidified his legacy as one of the pioneers of the lighter weight classes, helping to grow the sport and attract a wider audience to divisions that had previously struggled for recognition. However, his career began to shift when he lost his WEC title to Mike Brown in a shocking upset. The loss marked the end of his dominant run as champion and began a new chapter in his career, one defined by chasing the title rather than defending it. Faber attempted to reclaim the belt in a rematch with Brown but fell short once again. Despite these setbacks, he remained one of the top fighters in the division, consistently competing against elite opponents and maintaining his position as a top contender. When the WEC merged with the UFC, Faber transitioned into the bantamweight division, where he would spend the remainder of his prime career. The move to 135 pounds presented new challenges, but Faber quickly adapted, using his experience and well-rounded skill set to remain competitive. He secured key victories over fighters like Eddie Wineland and Ivan Menjivar, re-establishing himself as a top contender in the newly formed division. Faber's first opportunity to become a UFC champion came against his old rival Dominic Cruz for the bantamweight title. Their rivalry was one of the most compelling in the division's history, with contrasting styles and personalities. In their UFC title fight, Faber showed determination and heart, but Cruz's movement, striking, and defense proved too much, resulting in a decision loss. Despite the defeat, Faber remained in the title picture, continuing to defeat top contenders and earn additional opportunities. Over the next few years, Faber faced a series of elite fighters as he pursued the UFC Bantamweight Championship. He earned victories over Brian Bowles, Scott Jorgensen, and Michael McDonald, demonstrating his ability to remain competitive against the best in the world. These wins led to another title shot, this time against Renan Barão for the interim bantamweight belt. However, once again, Faber fell short, losing by decision in a hard-fought battle. Faber would later face Barão again, this time for the undisputed title, but the result was even more decisive, with Barão securing a dominant victory. These losses highlighted the harsh reality of Faber's career in the UFC. He was always among the best, but when it came to championship fights, he struggled to overcome the final obstacle. Despite this, he continued to compete at a high level, defeating top fighters like Alex Caceres and Francisco Rivera, maintaining his reputation as one of the division's elite competitors. Throughout his career, Urijah Faber compiled an impressive record, with more than 30 professional wins against high-level competition. His resume includes victories over champions, contenders, and future stars, and his influence on the sport extends far beyond his record. As the leader of Team Alpha Male, Faber played a crucial role in developing some of the best fighters in the lighter weight classes, helping to shape the next generation of talent. What makes Faber's story so compelling is the contrast between his dominance in the WEC and his struggles to capture UFC gold. In many ways, he was already a champion before joining the UFC, having ruled the featherweight division during its formative years. However, the transition to the UFC brought new challenges, new opponents, and a higher level of competition, and despite his best efforts, the UFC title remained just out of reach. Urijah Faber's legacy is not defined by the absence of a UFC championship, but by the impact he had on the sport and the divisions he helped build. He was a pioneer, a leader, and a fighter who consistently competed at the highest level for over a decade. His exciting fighting style, combined with his charisma and dedication, made him one of the most marboob fighters in MMA history. Alexander Gustafsson's career is one of the most compelling what could have been stories in MMA history. a narrative built around a fighter who came closer than almost anyone to defeating one of the greatest champions the sport has ever seen, yet ultimately fell just short when it mattered most. Born on January 15, 1987 in Arboga, Sweden, Gustafsson did not follow the traditional path of a lifelong martial artist. In his youth, he explored boxing and other sports, but his early life also included struggles outside the cage, which delayed his full commitment to fighting. However, once he dedicated himself to mixed martial arts, his natural athleticism, size, and striking ability quickly set him apart. Turning professional in 2007, Gustafsson built an impressive early record, finishing most of his opponents and earning a reputation as one of Europe's brightest prospects. Gustafsson joined the UFC in 2009, entering the light heavyweight division at a time when it was dominated by elite talent. Early in his UFC career, he showed promise, but also experienced setbacks that highlighted areas for improvement. A submission loss to Phil Davis exposed weaknesses in his grappling, but rather than slowing his progress, it became a turning point. Gustafsson began refining his wrestling defense and overall game, working tirelessly to become a more complete fighter. This evolution paid off as he began to string together victories against increasingly difficult competition. As his record improved, Gustafsson started to make a name for himself with wins over top contenders. He defeated fighters like Vladimir Matyushenko and Thiago Silva, showcasing his striking precision and ability to control fights at range. One of the most significant victories of his rise came against Mauricio Rua, a former champion and one of the most respected fighters in the division. Gustafsson dominated the fight, using his footwork, jab, and movement to outclass Rua over 3 rounds, proving that he was ready for the elite level of competition. He followed this performance with another impressive win over Gegard Mousasi, stepping in on short notice and delivering a strong performance that further solidified his status as a top contender. By this point, Gustafsson had built an impressive record and earned a reputation as one of the most dangerous strikers in the division, combining height, reach, and technical boxing in a way that few light heavyweights could match. His rise through the ranks led him to a title shot against the dominant champion Jon Jones, a fighter who had already established himself as one of the greatest in the sport. The fight between Gustafsson and Jon Jones at UFC 165 is widely regarded as one of the greatest fights in MMA history. Going into the bout, Jones was seen as nearly unbeatable, having dominated every opponent he faced. However, Gustafsson delivered a performance that shocked the world. Using his boxing, movement, and takedown defense, he pushed Jones to his limits over 5 rounds. He even became the first fighter to take Jones down inside the octagon, a moment that symbolized how competitive the fight truly was. Throughout the bout, Gustafsson landed clean strikes, controlled distance, and forced Jones into a war unlike any he had experienced before. In the end, the fight went to a decision, with Jones narrowly retaining his title. While the judges awarded the victory to Jones, many fans and analysts believed that Gustafsson had done enough to win. Regardless of the outcome, the fight elevated Gustafsson's status to a new level, proving that he was one of the best fighters in the world and arguably the closest anyone had come to defeating Jon Jones at that point in his career. Following this legendary performance, Gustafsson remained a top contender, but his journey back to a title shot was not without challenges. He suffered a loss to Anthony Johnson in a surprising upset, a fight that halted his momentum and raised questions about his consistency. However, true to form, Gustafsson bounced back with victories over fighters like Jimmy Manua and Glover Teixeira, both of which were hard-fought battles that showcased his resilience and ability to compete at the highest level. These wins earned him another opportunity to fight for the title, this time against Daniel Cormier for the vacant light heavyweight belt. In another closely contested fight, Gustafsson once again came up short, losing by split decision. It was yet another moment where he was just inches away from achieving his goal, only to fall short in the final moments. Gustafsson would later receive a rematch against Jon Jones, but the outcome was very different from their first encounter. In their second fight, Jones delivered a dominant performance, finishing Gustafsson and closing the chapter on their rivalry. This loss marked a turning point in Gustafsson's career as the physical and mental toll of competing at the highest level began to show. Despite these setbacks, Gustafsson's record remained impressive, with over 18 professional wins against elite competition. His resume includes victories over former champions and top contenders, and his performances in title fights demonstrated that he belonged among the very best in the division. However, his career was ultimately defined by the moments where he came closest to greatness, particularly his first fight with John Jones, which remains one of the most debated decisions in MMA history. Alexander Gustafsson's legacy is one of elite skill, resilience, and near greatness. He had all the tools to become a champion: world-class boxing, strong wrestling defense, and the ability to perform under pressure. Yet, in a division filled with legends, the margins for success were incredibly small, and Gustafsson found himself on the wrong side of those margins in his biggest fights. Rory MacDonald's career is a story of immense talent, relentless work ethic, and a near miss that forever changed his trajectory in the world of MMA. Born on July 22, 1989, in Quesnel, British Columbia, Canada, MacDonald was drawn to combat sports from a young age. Growing up in a tight-knit community, he discovered wrestling and Brazilian jiu-jitsu as outlets for his natural competitiveness. His early training was intense, and he quickly demonstrated a rare combination of athleticism, technique, and fight IQ that set him apart from his peers. Turning professional at just 17 years old, MacDonald entered the Canadian regional MMA scene and rapidly gained attention for his dominant performances, finishing most of his opponents and showcasing the calm composure that would become a hallmark of his fighting style. MacDonald's rise in the sport was steady and impressive. He built a record that included wins over talented prospects and regional champions, earning a reputation as a prodigy in the welterweight division. By the time he signed with Bellator MMA, he was already considered one of the top young fighters in the world. In Bellator, he defeated notable fighters such as Paul Daly and Nate Diaz in non-UFC bouts or early career matchups depending on promotion, demonstrating his ability to compete against elite-level talent. His performances showcased a well-rounded game, powerful striking, precise counters, and a grappling acumen that allowed him to control the pace of fights against top-tier opponents. After achieving significant success in Bellator, including earning the welterweight championship, MacDonald made the transition to the UFC, where he would cement his legacy as one of the most dangerous welterweights of his era. In the UFC, he quickly made a name for himself with a methodical, pressure-based style, earning victories over fighters such as Carlos Condit and Demian Maia. MacDonald was known for his ability to mix distance striking with devastating grappling, a combination that allowed him to adapt to any opponent. His mental toughness and measured approach inside the cage made him a nightmare matchup for anyone in the division. The pinnacle of MacDonald's career came when he earned a title shot against the dominant champion Georges St-Pierre at UFC 167. The fight was highly anticipated, pitting the young, hungry contender against one of the greatest fighters in MMA history. The bout was competitive, with MacDonald showing resilience and skill, but ultimately, St-Pierre's experience, precision, and game planning proved decisive. MacDonald lost via unanimous decision, but his performance was widely praised as he demonstrated the ability to compete at the highest level and push the champion further than many expected. This fight was a defining moment. It proved that MacDonald belonged among the elite, but it also marked the beginning of a path filled with challenges that would alter the course of his career. Following the St-Pierre fight, MacDonald continued to compete at an elite level. He faced a series of top contenders, including Nate Diaz, Donald Cerrone, and Tyron Woodley, earning impressive victories that solidified his reputation as one of the most dangerous welterweights in the world. Each fight showcased his ability to adapt, pressure opponents, and remain composed under the most intense circumstances. His record steadily improved, and MacDonald appeared poised for another run at the championship, this time as a fully matured fighter with a wealth of experience and skill. The defining moment of MacDonald's career, however, came against Robbie Lawler at UFC 189. Entering the fight as a top contender, MacDonald had the opportunity to finally capture the welterweight title and cement his place as the best in the world. What unfolded was one of the most brutal and memorable fights in MMA history. The fight was a back-and-forth war, with both fighters absorbing and delivering tremendous damage. McDonald showcased his incredible heart, technical skill, and fight IQ, controlling portions of the bout and landing precise counters. Yet, in the later rounds, Lawler's relentless power and unyielding pressure began to take their toll. The fight ended in a dramatic fifth-round TKO in Lawler's favor, leaving McDonald devastated and just short of the championship he had worked so hard to achieve. This fight became the defining what-if of McDonald's career. Despite the loss, he earned widespread respect from fans, media, and fellow fighters for his courage, skill, and determination. His willingness to engage in one of the most punishing fights in MMA history against a champion known for his knockout power cemented his reputation as a true warrior. Yet, the psychological and physical toll of that night marked a turning point. McDonald would never again have the same momentum or the same opportunity to capture UFC gold. In the years that followed, McDonald remained a top competitor, facing elite fighters like Demian Maia, Donald Cerrone, and others in the division. He demonstrated his versatility, blending precise striking, takedown defense, and submissions to remain competitive at the highest level. Despite continuing to perform well, the shadow of that single defining fight loomed over his career, serving as a reminder of how thin the line between victory and defeat can be at the elite level. McDonald's overall record is a testament to his skill, resilience, and consistency. With over 20 professional victories against top-tier competition, he consistently proved his ability to compete against champions, contenders, and future stars. His technical striking, well-rounded grappling, and mental toughness made him one of the most respected welterweights of his generation. Yet, his legacy is defined not just by what he accomplished, but also by the opportunities that slipped just out of reach, the one fight that could have crowned him champion and changed the trajectory of his career. Donald "Cowboy" Cerrone is one of the most prolific and exciting fighters in MMA history, known for his willingness to fight anyone, anywhere, and his ability to dominate nearly every opponent, except for the elite champions who stood above him. Born on March 29, 1983 in Denver, Colorado, Cerrone grew up in a working-class family and found solace and discipline in martial arts from a young age. He trained in kickboxing, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and later transitioned to mixed martial arts, quickly demonstrating the combination of striking, submission skills, and fearless attitude that would define his career. Turning professional in 2006, Cerrone quickly made a name for himself on the regional scene, finishing fights with a mix of knockouts and submissions, earning a reputation as a fighter with virtually no weaknesses. Cerrone's early career was marked by rapid success. Competing in smaller promotions, he built an impressive record with victories over tough regional opponents, displaying his signature style: aggressive, technical, and versatile. His performances earned him a contract with the WEC, a promotion that showcased many of the top lightweight fighters in the world. In the WEC, Cerrone continued to impress, but it was not without challenges. He faced high-level competition and developed his striking, grappling, and fight IQ, becoming a well-rounded mixed martial artist capable of competing against the best. When the WEC merged with the UFC in 2010, Cerrone transitioned into the biggest stage in MMA, entering a division stacked with elite talent. From the beginning, he established himself as one of the most dangerous lightweights in the world. Cerrone's UFC debut was explosive, earning a victory via submission and showcasing his fearless approach to fighting. His early success in the UFC was fueled by victories over opponents like Paul Kelly and Benson Henderson in non-title fights, demonstrating that he could hang with top-level competition. Over the years, Cerrone built a reputation as the ultimate gatekeeper of the lightweight and welterweight divisions. He defeated countless high-level contenders, including Edson Barboza, Jim Miller, and Anthony Pettis in non-title bouts, proving that he could consistently handle elite opposition. Cerrone's style combined precision striking, dynamic kicks, and dangerous submissions, making him a threat in every aspect of MMA. His ability to finish fights both on the feet and on the ground made him unpredictable and exciting for fans, earning him a massive following and respect from his peers. Despite his success against top contenders, Cerrone's career was defined by one frustrating limitation. He could not consistently overcome the elite champions standing above him. He faced multiple title challengers and former champions in high-stakes fights, but fell short when it mattered most. For example, in his fight against Rafael dos Anjos, Cerrone showed skill and determination, but ultimately lost via unanimous decision. Similarly, his bout with Conor McGregor ended in a knockout defeat, illustrating that while Cerrone could beat nearly anyone, the championship hurdle proved insurmountable. Cerrone's career is also defined by his unmatched activity and willingness to take fights on short notice. Known as Cowboy for his cowboy persona and relentless work ethic, he fought opponents back-to-back, often without extended training camps. This fearless approach earned him a reputation as one of the toughest and most reliable fighters in the sport. Unlike many fighters who carefully select opponents, Cerrone consistently sought out the best competition, earning victories over Alexander Hernandez, Diego Sanchez, and Eddie Alvarez, solidifying his place as one of the most respected gatekeepers in MMA history. Throughout his career, Cerrone amassed an impressive record with over 35 professional victories and multiple Fight of the Night and Performance of the Night bonuses. His consistency and durability allowed him to remain competitive across both the lightweight and welterweight divisions, facing virtually every top contender over a decade-long career. Cerrone's resume includes victories over fighters from multiple eras, demonstrating his adaptability and evolution as a fighter. Despite missing out on a UFC title, his accomplishments against elite competition cemented his legacy as one of the most skilled and versatile fighters in MMA history. One of the defining aspects of Cerrone's career was his ability to remain exciting and dangerous, regardless of his record. Fans knew that every time Cowboy stepped into the octagon, he could finish the fight with a knockout, submission, or relentless pressure. This fearlessness made him a fan favorite and an essential figure in the UFC. His fights were always must-watch events, and even in defeat, Cerrone earned respect for his courage, skill, and willingness to take on the toughest challenges. Cerrone's legacy also extends outside the cage. He became a mentor and inspiration to younger fighters, showing how discipline, hard work, and fearlessness can create a long and respected career. He contributed to the growth of MMA by setting an example of professionalism and consistency, demonstrating that even without a UFC championship, a fighter could leave a lasting mark on the sport. His career is a masterclass in persistence, resilience, and adaptability. Yoel Romero is one of the most explosive, intimidating, and physically gifted fighters in mixed martial arts history. Yet despite his enormous talent and the fear he instilled in every opponent, a UFC championship title eluded him throughout his career. Born on April 30, 1977, in Pinar del Rio, Cuba, Romero grew up in a country renowned for its wrestling and boxing traditions. He excelled in amateur wrestling, eventually becoming a world-class competitor, winning silver at the 2000 Sydney Olympics in freestyle wrestling at 85 kilograms. His wrestling background laid the foundation for a career built on incredible athleticism, explosiveness, and raw power, traits that would later define his MMA style. Romero transitioned to mixed martial arts relatively late in life, making his professional debut in 2009 at the age of 32. Despite starting later than most of his contemporaries, his skill set quickly made him a standout athlete. Combining his wrestling pedigree with natural knockout power, elite timing, and lightning-fast reactions, Romero developed a fighting style that was both frightening and unpredictable. Early in his career, he fought in regional promotions and international events, quickly compiling victories over notable opponents and earning a reputation as a dangerous prospect. In 2013, Romero made his UFC debut, immediately showcasing his explosive style. He quickly earned attention for his incredible athleticism, landing highlight reel knockouts that left fans and analysts in awe. One of his earliest notable victories came against Clint Hester, where he displayed his trademark speed and power, finishing the fight with a devastating knockout in the first round. Romero's ability to end fights quickly and decisively became a hallmark of his UFC tenure, making him a constant threat in the middleweight division. Romero's path to title contention was marked by dominant performances and highlight reel victories. He defeated seasoned fighters such as Lyoto Machida, Chris Weidman, and Vitor Belfort, showing that he could compete with some of the best middleweights of his era. Each fight highlighted his unique blend of wrestling, striking, and explosive athleticism. Romero was particularly known for his ability to generate tremendous knockout power from seemingly impossible angles, often striking without warning and ending fights with a single, decisive blow. Despite his fearsome reputation and elite skill set, Romero's pursuit of a UFC championship was fraught with near misses. His first opportunity came against the dominant middleweight champion Chris Weidman at UFC 205. Romero delivered an electrifying performance, utilizing his explosive striking, wrestling defense, and pace to challenge Weidman in every round. However, the fight went the distance, and Romero narrowly lost via split decision. The loss was controversial, with many fans and analysts believing that Romero had done enough to win. This marked the beginning of a series of title opportunities that would slip through his fingers, despite his incredible talent. Romero's next shot at gold came against Robert Whittaker at UFC 213. In a high-stakes rematch, Romero once again demonstrated his dangerous athleticism, landing devastating strikes and threatening to finish the fight multiple times. He even dropped Whittaker with a powerful knee, showcasing his knockout power and timing. However, despite his dominance in many moments of the bout, Romero lost via split decision, adding to the narrative of a fighter who could never quite cross the final threshold to championship glory. Throughout his career, Romero also faced a series of elite contenders in the middleweight division. Victories over fighters like Luke Rockhold, Jacare Souza, and Paulo Costa reinforced his reputation as one of the most dangerous fighters in the world. Each fight showcased his versatility. He could strike with explosive power, control opponents with elite wrestling, and absorb punishment while continuing to push the pace. Romero's style was a constant nightmare for opponents, as one mistake could result in immediate devastation. Romero's professional record reflects both his extraordinary skill and the cruel nature of high-level competition. With over 14 wins in the UFC, multiple Fight of the Night bonuses, and numerous performance bonuses, he consistently proved that he belonged at the top of the division. However, his age, physical style, and the timing of his opportunities often worked against him. Despite coming closer than most to winning the title, he was unable to secure the championship belt, leaving a sense of unfinished business that has defined his career. What makes Romero so compelling to MMA audiences is not just his skill set, but the aura of danger he brought to every fight. Opponents knew that a single mistake could end the fight, and fans were drawn to the unpredictability of his performances. His ability to combine elite wrestling with knockout power created a unique threat that few fighters could match. Romero was both a tactician and a pure athlete, capable of adapting to any opponent while maintaining the potential to finish fights in spectacular fashion. Beyond the cage, Romero's story is also one of perseverance and dedication. Competing at the highest level well into his 40s, he pushed himself against younger opponents and remained a relevant force in a division full of elite talent. His work ethic, discipline, and refusal to shy away from challenges made him one of the most respected figures in MMA. Despite never capturing the UFC championship, Romero's legacy is defined by his ability to threaten any fighter, regardless of their status, and to consistently deliver memorable and high-stakes performances. Chael Sonnen is one of the most fascinating figures in MMA history, a fighter whose combination of charisma, trash talk, and elite wrestling made him both a fan favorite and a formidable competitor, yet who never captured the UFC championship, despite coming within inches of creating one of the biggest upsets in the sport's history. Born on April 3, 1977 in West Lynn, Oregon, Sonnen began wrestling at a young age, quickly rising through the ranks to become a standout in high school and later in college. Wrestling became the foundation of his identity, giving him a skill set that would allow him to control opponents, dictate the pace of fights, and dominate in the clinch. Sonnen's transition to MMA in 1997 leveraged his wrestling pedigree while incorporating striking, submissions, and a cerebral approach that allowed him to compete against elite talent. Sonnen's early MMA career was a mixture of promise and setbacks. He quickly established himself as a strong wrestler with heavy top control and ground-and-pound skills, but his striking was initially underdeveloped, leading to early losses against fighters like Randy Couture in catchweight and light heavyweight bouts. These early experiences taught Sonnen how to adapt, improving his boxing, timing, and overall fight IQ. By the time he entered the UFC, Sonnen had become a well-rounded mixed martial artist, capable of competing with the best in both the middleweight and light heavyweight divisions. Sonnen's UFC career skyrocketed as he captured attention not just for his wrestling, but for his unparalleled ability to promote fights. Known for his charismatic trash talk, he hyped every matchup, creating storylines that drew mainstream attention and energized fans. But behind the bravado, Sonnen's skills were real. He earned victories over top contenders, including Forrest Griffin, Nate Marquardt, and Dan Henderson, demonstrating his ability to control opponents on the ground, maintain top pressure, and threaten with submissions. Sonnen became a master of the grind, wearing down opponents while frustrating them with relentless wrestling and constant forward pressure. Sonnen's closest approach to glory came against the legendary Anderson Silva. This fight, first at UFC 117 and later at UFC 148, became the defining moments of Sonnen's career and a cautionary tale of MMA's razor-thin margins. In their first encounter at UFC 117, Sonnen dominated the first 4 rounds, controlling Silva with his wrestling, landing heavy ground and pound, and demonstrating a tactical brilliance that few anticipated. For much of the fight, it appeared Sonnen was on the verge of creating one of the biggest upsets in UFC history. Fans and analysts alike were stunned as Silva appeared unable to implement his signature striking game, struggling under Sonnen's relentless pressure. However, the fight ended in dramatic fashion. With only minutes remaining in the 5th round, Silva secured a triangle armbar from the bottom, forcing Sonnen to submit and snatching victory from the jaws of what seemed like an imminent upset. The loss was heartbreaking, but it also immortalized Sonnen in the minds of fans as a fighter who came closer than almost anyone to toppling one of the greatest champions of all time. Despite the defeat, Sonnen's performance elevated him to legendary status, proving that he belonged among the sport's elite and that his wrestling-centric approach could threaten even the most dominant fighters. Sonnen received a rematch with Silva at UFC 148, but circumstances were different. The fight ended in a TKO victory for Silva in the 2nd round, a result that further cemented the narrative that despite Sonnen's elite skills and preparation, the ultimate championship remained just out of reach. Beyond Silva, Sonnen's career included memorable bouts against other top-tier opponents, such as Michael Bisping and Vitor Belfort, showcasing his wrestling, cage control, and ability to remain competitive against highly skilled strikers and submission specialists. Sonnen's overall record reflects both his elite talent and the challenges he faced at the highest level. With over 30 professional victories and numerous high-profile fights in the UFC, he consistently proved that he could compete against champions and top contenders alike. His wrestling allowed him to neutralize dangerous strikers, while his fight IQ and endurance enabled him to dictate the pace of grueling battles. Sonnen's style was particularly effective against opponents who relied on precision striking, as he could pressure relentlessly, smother opponents, and wear them down over multiple rounds. What makes Sonnen compelling to MMA audiences is not just his in-cage performance, but his personality outside it. He was a master of promotion, crafting narratives, feuds, and storylines that enhanced every fight he participated in. Sonnen's interviews, press conferences, and pre-fight antics made him a household name in MMA, turning every bout into an event that fans couldn't ignore. This duality, elite athletic skill combined with unmatched showmanship, allowed Sonnen to carve out a legacy as both a fighter and an entertainer. Despite never securing a UFC championship, Sonen's career remains a blueprint for persistence, resilience, and intelligence in mixed martial arts. He was the ultimate dark horse, a fighter who could challenge champions, dominate elite competition, and create memorable moments inside the cage, yet who often fell just short of achieving the ultimate prize. His willingness to fight anyone, adapt his style, and continue competing at a high level, well into his late 30s, demonstrated his dedication to the sport and cemented his reputation as one of MMA's most respected figures. Stephen "Wonderboy" Thompson is widely regarded as one of the most technically gifted strikers in MMA history, a fighter whose karate-based style combines precision, timing, and movement in a way that makes him a nightmare for opponents. Born on February 11, 1983 in Simpsonville, South Carolina, Thompson grew up immersed in martial arts. His father, Ray Thompson, was a full-contact karate competitor, and from a young age, Stephen was trained in traditional karate, kickboxing, and other striking arts. This foundation instilled in him not only technical skill, but also discipline, balance, and the ability to fight creatively while maintaining perfect distance and control. Thompson's path to mixed martial arts began in his teenage years when he transitioned from traditional karate tournaments to competitive kickboxing. His success in kickboxing, including multiple national and international titles, showcased his dynamic striking and set the stage for his eventual move to MMA. Turning professional in 2009, Thompson quickly demonstrated that his striking skills translated effectively to mixed martial arts, combining movement, feints, and diverse kicks with precise timing. Unlike many fighters who relied on brute force, Thompson's style focused on controlling distance, counter-striking, and exploiting opponents' mistakes with surgical precision. Early in his MMA career, Thompson fought in regional promotions, compiling an impressive record that included victories over seasoned fighters and prospects alike. His ability to remain calm under pressure, use unorthodox angles, and control the rhythm of fights made him a standout. By the time he entered the UFC in 2012, he had established himself as a top-tier striker with a unique style that opponents struggled to adapt to. His UFC debut showcased his karate-based movement and precise kicking arsenal, earning him immediate attention from fans and analysts. Thompson quickly climbed the welterweight rankings, earning notable victories against fighters such as Dan Stitkin and Robert Whittaker in preliminary matchups that demonstrated his striking superiority. One of his defining wins came against Johnny Hendricks, a former champion known for his power and wrestling. Thompson's ability to control range, evade heavy punches, and counter with devastating kicks allowed him to neutralize Hendricks' strengths and secure a decisive victory. This performance cemented his reputation as a fighter capable of competing at the highest level and propelled him toward title contention. Thompson's pursuit of the UFC welterweight championship began in earnest against the dominant champion Tyron Woodley. Their first encounter at UFC 205 showcased Thompson's technical brilliance as he controlled distance, landed sharp counters, and avoided Woodley's power shots. However, despite outstriking Woodley for much of the fight, the decision went in favor of Woodley, a result that left fans divided and Thompson frustrated. The rematch at UFC 209 was another technical masterclass, with Thompson again displaying superior movement and striking, but the bout ended in a similar fashion, with Woodley retaining the title via a close decision. These outcomes highlighted a key theme of Thompson's career. Exceptional skill and strategy do not always guarantee championship success. Throughout his career, Thompson remained a top contender in the welterweight division, consistently taking on the best fighters and demonstrating his technical mastery. He secured victories over elite competition such as Jorge Masvidal and Neil Magny, earning Performance of the Night bonuses and impressing audiences with his unique style. Thompson's karate-based approach allowed him to dominate striking exchanges while minimizing damage, a rare combination in a division known for power punchers and aggressive wrestlers. His ability to maintain composure, counter effectively, and adapt mid-fight made him a formidable opponent for anyone in the welterweight class. Thompson's record reflects both his elite skill and the challenges of competing at the highest level. With over 18 professional victories in the UFC and multiple post-fight bonuses, he demonstrated remarkable consistency and longevity in a division stacked with dangerous competitors. Yet, despite his technical brilliance and elite striking, the UFC title remained elusive, a reminder that MMA is a sport where style, timing, and opportunity must align perfectly for championship glory. Thompson's career is defined by moments of brilliance, fights that displayed the beauty of martial arts, and near misses that left fans wishing he had been able to convert his skills into a belt. One of the most compelling aspects of Thompson's career is the contrast between his style and the results. While he often outstruck and outmaneuvered opponents, the judges' decisions did not always reflect the dominance he displayed. Yet, his impact on the sport extends beyond wins and losses. Thompson brought a unique approach to MMA, blending traditional martial arts philosophy with modern mixed martial arts techniques. His movement, kicking combinations, and ability to fight from unorthodox angles inspired a generation of strikers and demonstrated that technique and strategy could rival raw power in effectiveness. Off the cage, Thompson is respected for his humility, dedication to his craft, and sportsmanship. He remains a student of martial arts, continuously refining his skills and mentoring younger fighters. His presence in the UFC has elevated the profile of technical striking, showing that precision, timing, and adaptability are just as critical as strength and aggression. Fans and analysts alike appreciate Thompson not only for his performances, but for the artistry he brings to every fight. Dan Henderson is one of the most iconic figures in mixed martial arts history, a fighter whose combination of power, durability, and wrestling made him a champion outside the UFC, but left him tantalizingly short of gold within the octagon. Born on August 24, 1970, in Downey, California, Henderson grew up immersed in sports, eventually finding his calling in wrestling. He excelled at the high school and collegiate levels, eventually competing for the U.S. Olympic wrestling team and earning recognition for his technique, strength, and competitive drive. Wrestling became the foundation of Henderson's fighting career, shaping the skills and mentality that would carry him through decades of competition at the highest levels of MMA. Henderson's early MMA career began in the late 1990s, competing in Japanese promotions such as Pride Fighting Championships and later in Strikeforce. His wrestling background gave him a distinct advantage in controlling opponents, but it was his overhand right, famously dubbed the H-bomb, that cemented his reputation as one of the most dangerous knockout artists in MMA history. Henderson quickly demonstrated an unusual combination of elite wrestling, elite power, and incredible durability, making him nearly impossible to finish. By the early 2000s, he had established himself as a dominant force in the middleweight and light heavyweight divisions, defeating top international competition and capturing championships outside the UFC, including Pride and later Strikeforce titles. Henderson's path to the UFC was marked by legendary fights against some of the best fighters of his era. In Pride, he faced and defeated the likes of Wanderlei Silva and Mirko Cro Cop, showcasing his ability to neutralize dangerous strikers with his wrestling while delivering fight-ending power shots. His tenure in Strikeforce further solidified his legacy, as he captured the middleweight and light heavyweight championships, proving his ability to dominate multiple weight classes. Henderson's championship runs outside the UFC highlighted his elite skill, mental toughness, and ability to adapt to diverse opponents with different fighting styles, from submission specialists to knockout artists. Henderson's UFC career began later in his life, but he quickly demonstrated that he belonged among the elite. He earned victories over notable contenders such as Michael Bisping and Mauricio Rua, combining his wrestling, striking, and signature overhand right to overwhelm opponents. His style was deceptively simple, but incredibly effective. He could control fights with takedowns, pressure, and grappling, then finish fights with precise and devastating knockout power. Henderson's ability to compete at a high level against fighters decades younger than him earned him respect and admiration throughout the MMA community. Despite his undeniable talent and success in other organizations, Henderson was never able to capture a UFC championship. He came close on multiple occasions, including bouts against Lyoto Machida and Michael Bisping, where his experience, skill, and toughness made for competitive, memorable fights. Henderson was often at a disadvantage in terms of age or timing, entering the UFC later in his career when he faced fighters in their prime. Nevertheless, he consistently challenged the top contenders and provided thrilling performances, further cementing his legacy as a fighter who could compete with anyone, even without a UFC belt. Henderson's overall professional record is a testament to his longevity, versatility, and skill. With over 30 wins across multiple organizations and weight classes, he consistently demonstrated the ability to adapt to opponents and fight at the highest level for more than a decade. His overhand right became legendary, capable of ending fights instantly, and his wrestling base allowed him to control fights against elite strikers. Henderson's durability was nearly unparalleled, allowing him to withstand punishment and remain a threat until the final bell. He was a fighter who combined experience, technique, and raw power, creating one of the most complete skill sets in MMA history. One of Henderson's defining qualities was his ability to compete across weight classes. Unlike many fighters who focus on a single division, Henderson moved seamlessly between middleweight and light heavyweight, challenging champions and top contenders in both. This versatility allowed him to face a diverse array of opponents, including submission specialists, knockout artists, and high-level wrestlers. Victories over fighters like Michael Bisping, Mauricio Rua, and Rashad Evans showcased his ability to adapt and compete at an elite level, regardless of style or weight class. Henderson's legacy is also defined by his toughness and warrior mentality. He consistently took fights against top competition, often under challenging circumstances, and rarely avoided a challenge. His willingness to face the best fighters of his era, combined with his technical skill and knockout power, made him one of the most respected figures in MMA history. Fans and analysts alike recognize Henderson not just for his victories, but for his resilience, heart, and consistency across multiple decades. He was the embodiment of a true mixed martial artist, versatile, fearless, and relentless. Nick Diaz is one of the most polarizing and captivating figures in MMA history, a fighter whose relentless pressure, cardio, and unconventional striking style made him both feared and admired, yet who never captured a UFC championship despite coming close on multiple occasions. Born on August 2, 1983 in Stockton, California, Diaz grew up in a family deeply immersed in martial arts. His older brother, Nate Diaz, would later become a UFC star as well, and together they became synonymous with the Stockton fighting scene. Nick's upbringing instilled toughness, work ethic, and an unrelenting competitive spirit, all of which became hallmarks of his fighting style. Diaz began training in Brazilian jiu-jitsu and boxing at a young age, developing a hybrid skill set that combined elite submission grappling with aggressive stand-up striking. He turned professional in 2001 and quickly made a name for himself in regional promotions, earning victories over seasoned fighters and establishing his reputation as a pressure fighter who never relented. Nick's style was defined by forward movement, high-volume punching, and an ability to push opponents to their limits physically and mentally. His conditioning allowed him to maintain an unrelenting pace for 5 rounds, overwhelming opponents with both strikes and grappling threats. Diaz's UFC debut came in 2003, and he immediately made an impression with his striking, durability, and submission skills. Early victories over fighters like Joe Riggs and Josh Neer showcased his ability to dominate through pressure and cardio. Diaz's style was unconventional, mixing boxing, kickboxing, and Muay Thai techniques with a grappling base rooted in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, which allowed him to be effective in any position. His ability to control pace and frustrate opponents became his signature, earning him respect and fear throughout the UFC roster. Over the years, Diaz faced elite competition, fighting some of the most notable names in MMA history. His bouts with B.J. Penn, Frank Shamrock, and Robbie Lawler demonstrated his capacity to compete at the highest level. Against BJ Penn, Diaz showcased his durability and striking volume, forcing Penn to fight at an uncomfortable pace. In his rematch with Robbie Lawler, Diaz displayed his signature boxing combinations, pressure, and stamina, although he fell short in terms of the judges' decisions. These fights highlighted both his skill and the recurring theme of near misses in his pursuit of the ultimate prize. One of Diaz's most memorable moments came against Georges St-Pierre at UFC 158. This fight illustrated the limitations and strengths of Diaz's pressure-based style. He attempted to push St-Pierre, utilizing relentless boxing combinations and grappling attempts, but GSP's movement, timing, and strategy neutralized much of Diaz's offense. The fight ended in a decision loss for Diaz, but it remains one of the most discussed and analyzed bouts in UFC history, showcasing how a high-pressure, high-volume style could challenge even the most technical fighters. Diaz's overall UFC record reflects a career filled with highs and lows, thrilling victories, and frustrating setbacks. With over 25 professional wins, including knockout and submission victories, Diaz consistently demonstrated his ability to finish fights in multiple ways. His conditioning and work rate were unmatched, allowing him to maintain pressure from start to finish, often overwhelming opponents who could not match his pace. Diaz's submission skills, particularly his guillotine choke and triangle setups, combined with his relentless boxing, made him a dual threat in every fight. Off the cage, Diaz's personality amplified his presence in MMA. Known for his outspoken nature, anti-establishment attitude, and candid interviews, he became a cult figure among fans. His approach to fighting and life reflected a disdain for unnecessary rules, a focus on natural talent, and a willingness to push boundaries. Diaz's charisma, combined with his aggressive and entertaining fighting style, helped him cultivate one of the most loyal fan bases in the sport. UFC fans often referred to him as a true warrior, someone who fought for pride, honor, and the love of combat, regardless of titles or accolades. Nick Diaz's career also illustrates the struggles fighters face with regulatory bodies, suspensions, and weight management. Throughout his time in the UFC, Diaz faced setbacks outside the cage, including suspensions related to performance-enhancing substances and weight issues in championship bouts. These challenges, while controversial, added to the mystique of Diaz as a fighter who was often on the edge of MMA's structure and rules, making his bouts and career trajectory unpredictable and compelling. Despite never holding a UFC championship, Diaz's legacy as a fighter is unquestionable. He brought excitement, pressure, and technical skill to the cage, often putting opponents in situations they had never faced before. His ability to combine elite cardio, relentless striking, and submission threats made him one of the most complete pressure fighters in MMA history. Diaz remains a benchmark for fighters looking to combine skill with personality, showing that fighting is not just about titles, but about entertainment, strategy, and the will to dominate every exchange. Colby Covington is one of the most polarizing and relentless figures in MMA, a fighter whose cardio, wrestling, and high-pressure style have made him a constant threat in the UFC welterweight division. Yet despite his talent and dominance, the championship has always remained just out of reach. Born on February 22, 1988 in Clovis, California, Covington grew up in a sports-focused environment, excelling in wrestling from a young age. He competed at the collegiate level at Oregon State University, where he became a two-time NCAA Division I All-American. Wrestling became the foundation of his MMA career, giving him unmatched control over fights, relentless pace, and the ability to dictate where battles take place. Covington transitioned to professional MMA in 2012, quickly gaining attention for his grappling dominance, durability, and high fight IQ. Early victories in regional promotions showcased his ability to implement pressure and control over opponents, blending wrestling with an evolving striking game. Covington's style is defined by relentless pace, high-volume striking, and suffocating wrestling, which wears down opponents over time. He is particularly known for his cardio, often maintaining intensity from the opening bell to the final round, a trait that has earned him both victories and a reputation as one of the hardest-working fighters in the UFC. Colby entered the UFC in 2014, making an immediate impression with his performances against tough competition. He earned early victories against fighters like Max Griffin and Alex Garcia, combining relentless takedowns with aggressive striking to dominate each contest. Covington's ability to control distance, push the pace, and force opponents into mistakes quickly established him as a top welterweight contender. His wrestling base allowed him to neutralize dangerous strikers while maintaining offensive output, making him extremely difficult to beat in the octagon. Over the next several years, Covington faced elite-level competition and began climbing the welterweight rankings. Notable victories over Demian Maia, Rafael dos Anjos, and Tyron Woodley demonstrated his ability to compete with former champions and elite contenders. His performance against Woodley, where he won decisively by out-wrestling and out-striking the former champion, showcased his mastery of the grind and pressure style, earning him widespread recognition as a top contender in the division. Covington's relentless approach often frustrated opponents who struggled to keep up with his pace and accuracy, and it became the hallmark of his MMA identity. Covington's style, while highly effective, also made him polarizing among fans. He combined intense training, technical brilliance, and psychological warfare, often using media and interviews to provoke opponents and create controversy. While some critics dismissed this as brash or over the top, it mirrored his in-cage approach: constant pressure, high-volume offense, and strategic manipulation of opponents' mental state. Covington's ability to combine his wrestling pedigree, cardio, and striking with mental games made him one of the most unique and challenging fighters in the welterweight division. Despite his skills and high-profile victories, the UFC championship has eluded Covington. He earned a title shot against the reigning champion Kamaru Usman at UFC 245, a fight that perfectly illustrated both his strengths and limitations. Covington implemented his signature relentless pressure, attempting to neutralize Usman's striking and impose his wrestling dominance. While he had moments of success, Usman's combination of timing, counter-striking, and wrestling defense ultimately secured the decision. The loss underscored a recurring theme in Covington's career. Elite-level consistency and dominance are sometimes not enough to clinch the championship when facing exceptional champions in their prime. Covington's overall professional record highlights both his success and resilience. With more than 20 UFC victories and multiple performance bonuses, he has consistently demonstrated his ability to overcome elite competition. Victories over fighters like Robbie Lawler and Tyson Pedro reflect his adaptability in high-pressure situations, while losses against elite champions highlight the narrow margin between winning a title and falling short. Covington remains an elite welterweight capable of competing at the highest level, and his consistent performances have cemented his status as one of the toughest and most disciplined fighters in MMA. Off the cage, Covington has cultivated a persona that amplifies his in-cage intensity. Known for his outspoken comments, social media presence, and strategic rivalries, he has become one of the most talked-about athletes in MMA. This approach has not only elevated his profile, but has also created high-stakes matchups and narratives that increase the pressure and visibility of his fights. Covington understands the business and entertainment side of MMA, using his personality to maintain relevance and keep fans invested in his career. The story of Colby Covington is one of relentless pursuit. From his wrestling beginnings in California to high-level MMA competition, he has consistently pushed himself and others to the limit. His career exemplifies the balance between technical skill, conditioning, strategy, and mental toughness, and highlights the narrow line that separates title winners from those who remain just short. Covington's legacy is defined not only by wins and losses, but by the unyielding effort, preparation, and willingness to compete against anyone at any time. Carlos Condit is a fighter whose career embodies the essence of mixed martial arts: skill, heart, and relentless entertainment. Born on April 26, 1984 in Albuquerque, New Mexico, Condit grew up in a diverse athletic environment where he developed a love for combat sports at an early age. Initially drawn to wrestling and boxing, Condit soon discovered a passion for Brazilian jiu-jitsu and mixed martial arts, which allowed him to combine striking and grappling into a dynamic, unpredictable fighting style. His early exposure to multiple disciplines laid the groundwork for a career defined by versatility, creativity, and a willingness to take risks in the octagon. Condit began his professional MMA career in 2002, quickly establishing himself as a high-level competitor with explosive striking and elite submission skills. Competing in regional promotions, he built a reputation as an exciting and dangerous fighter who could finish fights both on the feet and on the ground. His early victories demonstrated his ability to adapt to opponents of varying styles, combining precise striking with opportunistic grappling. Condit's willingness to engage, take risks, and maintain constant pressure earned him early attention from larger organizations and eventually paved the way for his entry into the WEC and later the UFC. Condit's rise in the WEC was defined by his entertaining style and ability to defeat top-level competition. He captured the WEC welterweight championship in 2007, a milestone that showcased his skill set against elite opposition. His reign included memorable victories and fights where his striking creativity, submissions, and finishing instincts shone. Fighters such as Brian Stann and Hiromitsu Miura felt the pressure of Condit's style, which combined unrelenting aggression, technical skill, and psychological intensity. His WEC tenure cemented him as a rising star in the welterweight division, ready to test himself against the best the UFC had to offer. Transitioning to the UFC in 2010, Condit faced a deeper and more competitive talent pool. Despite the challenge, he quickly made an impact with his performances against top contenders. Notable victories included fights against Martin Kampmann, Dan Hardy, and Dong Hyun Kim, where his combination of volume striking, movement, and submission threats overwhelmed opponents. Condit's fights were often technical masterpieces that also thrilled audiences, earning him a reputation as one of the most exciting and unpredictable fighters in the welterweight division. His style emphasized both offense and defense, as he was capable of finishing opponents while avoiding significant damage through slick movement and fight IQ. One of the most defining moments of Condit's career came during his fight against Georges St-Pierre at UFC 154 for the UFC welterweight title. Condit delivered a performance that is still remembered as one of the most competitive and entertaining title fights in modern MMA history. He utilized unorthodox striking, relentless pressure, and takedown defense to challenge the reigning champion over 5 grueling rounds. Although Condit lost by decision, his performance earned him widespread respect for his toughness, creativity, and ability to push one of the greatest champions in UFC history to the limit. This fight exemplified his warrior spirit as he refused to back down, consistently pressed forward, and remained dangerous throughout the contest. Throughout his career, Condit maintained a reputation for resilience and versatility. His professional record includes over 30 victories, featuring knockouts, submissions, and decision wins against elite-level fighters. He faced a wide array of competition, including strikers, grapplers, and well-rounded mixed martial artists, consistently demonstrating the ability to adapt and overcome challenges. Victories over fighters such as Thiago Alves, Shamar Bailey, and Nate Diaz highlight his capacity to compete at the highest level, blending strategy with heart to secure memorable wins. Condit's approach to fighting also included a mental and psychological component. Known for his calm demeanor outside the cage and unyielding aggression inside, he became a fan favorite for both his performances and his personality. Condit understood how to leverage both skill and strategy, reading opponents, controlling pace, and delivering decisive moments at critical junctures in fights. His ability to mix striking combinations with takedown threats and submission setups made him unpredictable, keeping elite opponents constantly adjusting throughout the fight. Despite his skill and exciting style, Condit never captured the UFC championship. Timing, competition, and circumstance often worked against him, including fights against dominant champions and top-ranked contenders who were at their peak. Yet, the lack of a UFC belt does not diminish his legacy. Condit's career is defined not solely by titles, but by the excitement he brought to every fight, the technical mastery he displayed, and his relentless warrior spirit. He remains one of the most respected fighters among fans and peers for his skill, courage, and willingness to compete against anyone, anywhere. Carlos Condit represents the archetype of the warrior in MMA, a fighter whose career is measured as much by heart and courage as by championships. He brought excitement to the cage, challenged elite opponents, and left a lasting mark on the sport through unforgettable performances. His fights were demonstrations of skill, creativity, and a refusal to back down, showcasing the essence of mixed martial arts, bravery, adaptability, and the will to push limits. Condit's story reminds fans that greatness is not defined solely by belts, but by the legacy a fighter leaves through their courage, memorable battles, and contribution to the sport's evolution. Darren Till is one of the most electrifying and intriguing talents in modern MMA. A fighter whose meteoric rise captured the attention of fans worldwide, but whose path to a UFC championship has been marked by both promise and setbacks. Born on December 24, 1992, in Liverpool, England, Till grew up in a working-class environment where sports offered both an escape and a path toward discipline and purpose. From an early age, Till displayed athletic talent, eventually gravitating toward Muay Thai and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, disciplines that would later define his striking precision, clinch work, and grappling abilities. Till began his professional career in 2013, competing primarily in regional promotions across the UK and Europe. He quickly developed a reputation as a dangerous striker with knockout power and a fearlessness that made him stand out among his peers. Early victories over opponents such as Brandon Thatch and Johnny Campbell highlighted his striking versatility, showcasing a mix of powerful kicks, precision punches, and aggressive forward pressure. These early performances set the stage for his eventual transition to the global stage in the UFC. Till made his UFC debut in 2015, immediately turning heads with his confident style and finishing ability. His striking, combined with excellent timing and reach, allowed him to dominate opponents in the welterweight division. Early UFC victories included wins against Niko Musoka and Bojan Veličković, demonstrating his ability to control fights while maintaining offensive threat. Till's combination of precision striking and aggressive pace made him a fan favorite, as each bout carried the potential for a highlight reel finish. Till's climb in the welterweight division was rapid, earning him a title shot against Tyron Woodley at UFC 228 in 2018. Leading up to the fight, Till had amassed an impressive undefeated streak in the UFC, showcasing both technical striking and toughness. However, the bout with Woodley highlighted the challenges of facing elite-level champions. Till struggled to close distance effectively, and Woodley's power and experience ultimately secured a fifth-round TKO victory. Despite the loss, Till gained respect for his willingness to face one of the division's most formidable champions, and for pushing the pace against a seasoned opponent. Following his title shot, Till made the bold decision to move up to middleweight, seeking a fresh start and new opportunities against larger competition. His middleweight debut came against Kelvin Gastelum, a fight that was highly anticipated due to both fighters' aggressive styles and previous UFC accomplishments. Till displayed sharp striking and excellent timing, but he also revealed areas for improvement, particularly in handling pressure from elite grapplers and adjusting to larger opponents' power. This fight ended in a closely contested decision, signaling that while Till remained a dangerous and skilled fighter, his path to a middleweight championship would not be straightforward. Till's career is characterized by both rapid rises and difficult setbacks, reflecting the challenges of elite competition in the UFC. His professional record includes numerous victories by knockout and decision, showcasing his ability to finish fights and impose his style on opponents. Notable wins against fighters such as Donald Cerrone and Jorge Masvidal highlight his ability to compete with top-tier competition while maintaining an exciting and unpredictable fighting style. Till's approach blends striking precision, power, and a willingness to push the pace, making him both a threat and a fan favorite. Outside the cage, Till has cultivated a reputation for confidence, charisma, and intensity. His media presence, candid interviews, and willingness to engage in rivalries have made him one of the most talked-about fighters in MMA. While his outspoken nature sometimes draws controversy, it mirrors his fighting style, fearless, direct, and always looking to impose his will. Till understands the entertainment side of the sport, balancing technical skill with the psychological elements that make MMA compelling to audiences worldwide. Despite his talents and high-profile victories, the championship has remained elusive for Till. Timing, injuries, and the strength of division champions have consistently placed him just short of ultimate success. Yet, his persistence and willingness to take on top-level competition highlight his dedication and resilience. Darren Till exemplifies the fighter who has the skills, heart, and vision to compete at the highest levels, but who also faces the narrow margins and unpredictability inherent in MMA. Till's journey illustrates the volatile nature of mixed martial arts, rapid ascents, breathtaking victories, and disappointing setbacks. His career serves as a reminder that talent and preparation are critical, but circumstances, opponent strategy, and timing often determine outcomes. Through it all, Till has maintained his position as one of the most dynamic and exciting fighters in the UFC, earning the respect of fans and peers alike for his dedication and willingness to challenge the best in the world. Alistair Overeem is one of the most decorated and experienced fighters in mixed martial arts history, a true veteran whose career spans decades, multiple organizations, and countless high-stakes battles. Born on May 17, 1980, in Hounslow, London, England, Overeem grew up in the Netherlands, where he was exposed to martial arts from an early age. Coming from a family with a strong athletic background, he gravitated toward kickboxing and later embraced mixed martial arts, blending his striking skills with grappling to become a complete, versatile fighter. Overeem's early years in combat sports were defined by discipline, technical precision, and an innate understanding of the mental and physical demands of high-level competition. Overeem's professional MMA career began in 1999, quickly distinguishing him as a formidable heavyweight with a diverse skill set. He combined devastating Muay Thai striking, precise kicks, and knockout power with wrestling and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fundamentals, making him a threat both on the feet and on the ground. Early victories in regional circuits and Japanese promotions built his reputation as he demonstrated the ability to finish fights in multiple ways. Overeem's aggressive style, technical ability, and resilience allowed him to compete against some of the most dangerous fighters in the world, while continually evolving his game to meet new challenges. Overeem's rise to international prominence occurred through his tenure in major organizations such as Pride Fighting Championships and Strikeforce. In Pride, he faced elite heavyweights like Mirko Cro Cop and Fedor Emelianenko, displaying a combination of technical striking, clinch control, and tactical awareness. His performances against these high-level opponents showcased his ability to compete with the best in the world, earning him respect and solidifying his status as an elite fighter. Overeem's tenure in Strikeforce further cemented his legacy, culminating in his capture of the Strikeforce Heavyweight Championship. In these bouts, he demonstrated his ability to neutralize opponents' strengths, deliver devastating combinations, and impose his pace while remaining strategically sound. In addition to MMA, Overeem also built an impressive career in kickboxing, particularly in the K1 circuit. He became the K1 World Grand Prix champion in 2010, defeating some of the world's best stand-up fighters with his power, technique, and resilience. This achievement underscored Overeem's versatility and cemented his status as one of the most accomplished combat sports athletes in history. His dual success in MMA and kickboxing made him a unique figure, capable of competing at the highest levels in both striking and mixed martial arts arenas. Overeem's UFC career began in 2011, marked by anticipation and high expectations. Fans and analysts alike viewed him as a potential heavyweight champion, given his experience, technical skill, and finishing ability. Early UFC fights demonstrated his striking precision and knockout power, with notable victories over fighters such as Brock Lesnar, Frank Mir, and Junior Dos Santos. Each victory highlighted his ability to combine strategy, timing, and raw power to dominate elite opponents, keeping fans excited about his potential title run. Despite his experience and skill, the UFC heavyweight title remained elusive for Overeem. He challenged for the belt on multiple occasions, but fell short due to a combination of timing, opponent dominance, and situational challenges. His fight against Stipe Miocic exemplified the narrow margins that separated him from ultimate success. Overeem displayed his signature striking, wrestling, and endurance, but was unable to overcome Miocic's well-rounded skill set and tactical execution, resulting in a decision loss. Similarly, bouts against other top contenders highlighted his ability to compete, but underscored the difficulty of capturing the ultimate prize in a division filled with powerful elite athletes. Throughout his UFC tenure, Overeem's record reflects both triumphs and challenges. He has secured over 40 professional MMA victories, including numerous knockouts and submission wins, demonstrating his ability to finish fights in multiple ways. His losses, often to elite champions or top contenders, illustrate the razor-thin margins that exist at the highest levels of the sport. Overeem's ability to remain competitive for decades, facing younger, fresher opponents while maintaining power, precision, and technical skill, is a testament to his dedication and evolution as a fighter. Overeem's personality outside the cage complements his fighting legacy. Known for his professionalism, strategic approach, and dedication to training, he has earned the respect of fans and fellow fighters alike. Unlike some combat sports stars, Overeem's focus has always been on performance and improvement, constantly adapting his style to remain competitive against evolving competition. His calm demeanor, combined with explosive aggression in the octagon, creates a compelling contrast that adds depth to his story as both a fighter and a professional athlete. The story of Alistair Overeem is a testament to persistence, adaptability, and enduring talent. He has competed across continents against legends of both MMA and kickboxing and has continuously sought opportunities to claim the highest honors. While the UFC championship eluded him, Overeem's career is marked by victories over the elite, memorable performances, and a reputation as a true warrior of the sport. His legacy demonstrates that greatness in MMA is not solely measured by titles, but also by the ability to maintain relevance, compete at the highest levels, and leave an indelible mark on the sport. Demian Maia is widely recognized as one of the most technically gifted grapplers in MMA history, a master of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu whose career demonstrates the power of technique, patience, and strategy. Born on November 6, 1977, in São Paulo, Brazil, Maia began practicing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at a young age, eventually earning a black belt under world-renowned instructors. His dedication to grappling laid the foundation for a professional MMA career characterized by precision, control, and an almost unmatched ability to finish opponents on the ground. Maia's style relies on patience, timing, and a deep understanding of leverage, allowing him to dominate opponents with submissions even against elite-level competition. Maia's professional MMA career began in 2001, competing primarily in Brazilian regional promotions before transitioning to the international stage. He quickly established himself as a submission specialist, consistently finishing fights through arm triangles, rear naked chokes, and other grappling techniques. His early victories demonstrated a combination of calm under pressure, strategic intelligence, and technical mastery, allowing him to neutralize opponents who relied on striking or athleticism. Maia's approach was methodical, emphasizing control and efficiency rather than reckless aggression, which became a defining characteristic of his career. Maia gained global attention during his tenure in Strikeforce and the UFC, where his grappling expertise was a rare and respected asset. He competed in the middleweight and welterweight divisions, adapting his game to different opponents while maintaining his submission dominance. Notable victories over fighters such as Chael Sonnen, Jake Shields, and Carlos Condit showcased his ability to neutralize elite strikers and wrestlers, systematically taking them to the ground and controlling the fight. These performances cemented his reputation as one of the most dangerous submission artists in MMA history. Maia's journey toward a UFC title was long and filled with elite-level competition. In 2010, he joined the UFC middleweight division, facing opponents who combined striking, wrestling, and all-around MMA skills. Despite his grappling brilliance, Maia encountered difficulties against well-rounded fighters who could avoid the ground game or control the pace of the fight. He remained consistently near the top of the rankings, earning multiple title shots and facing some of the most respected champions of his era. His bouts were often tactical masterpieces, demonstrating patience, strategy, and the ability to capitalize on the smallest mistakes of his opponents. One of Maia's most notable title fights came against Chris Weidman at UFC 112, where he showcased his grappling dominance while struggling to overcome Weidman's striking and takedown defense. Although Maia ultimately lost by decision, the fight highlighted his ability to control the cage, implement strategy, and threaten with submissions at any moment. Another significant title opportunity arose against Tyron Woodley in the welterweight division. Maia's approach was similar: relentless positional control, patience, and precise submission attempts. Despite a strong performance, he was unable to secure a championship, illustrating how even elite skill sets can be met with formidable challenges at the highest levels of competition. Throughout his career, Maia's professional record reflects both skill and consistency. With over 25 UFC victories, numerous submission wins, and a high-level grappling pedigree, he consistently demonstrated the ability to compete with and defeat elite fighters. His wins over opponents like Carlos Condit, Jake Shields, and Nate Marquardt highlight his mastery of positioning, timing, and finishing technique. Losses against champions or top contenders serve to emphasize the razor-thin margins that separate title holders from those who are exceptional yet fall just short. Maia's legacy is defined not by a belt, but by technical excellence, consistency, and the ability to impose his will on elite fighters. Maia's fighting style is deceptively simple but highly effective. He uses striking to set up takedowns, employs feints and pressure to force mistakes, and capitalizes instantly when opportunities arise. His Brazilian jiu-jitsu expertise allows him to control opponents from virtually any position, converting positional dominance into submission threats that few can escape. This technical precision, combined with intelligence and composure, makes him a perpetual threat in any fight, earning respect from fans, commentators, and fellow fighters alike. Outside the octagon, Maia is known for his calm demeanor, professionalism, and dedication to teaching Brazilian jiu-jitsu. His influence extends beyond his own career, as he has trained numerous students and fighters who have gone on to achieve success in MMA and grappling competitions worldwide. Maia's approach to martial arts emphasizes respect, discipline, and continuous improvement, reflecting his philosophy that mastery comes not only through victories, but also through understanding and application of technique over time. Demian Maia's story in MMA illustrates the journey of a fighter who is elite, respected, and feared, yet never captured the UFC championship. His path is a testament to skill, resilience, and strategic thinking, showing that excellence in the sport is not always measured solely by belts. Maia's legacy is built on the fights he dominated, the submissions he executed, and the consistent excellence he displayed against some of the toughest competitors in the world. He exemplifies the idea that technical mastery, patience, and intelligence are as crucial to MMA success as raw power or knockout ability. Frank Mir is a fighter whose name is synonymous with submission mastery, resilience, and the dramatic highs and lows of a career in the UFC heavyweight division. Born on May 24, 1979, in Las Vegas, Nevada, Mir grew up with a natural aptitude for athletics and a keen interest in combat sports. Early exposure to wrestling and Brazilian jiu-jitsu laid the foundation for his technical prowess and competitive spirit. From a young age, Mir displayed an instinct for both strategy and execution, combining natural strength with meticulous technique, which would later become his hallmark in professional mixed martial arts. Mir began his professional MMA career in 1999, quickly establishing himself as a dangerous competitor in the heavyweight division. His ability to combine wrestling, striking, and elite submission skills made him a well-rounded threat from the outset. Mir's grappling, particularly his knowledge of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, set him apart from many of his contemporaries. Early victories through arm bars, kimuras, and rear-naked chokes earned him recognition and respect in regional promotions and international competitions. These formative years demonstrated Mir's capacity for technical mastery and the kind of fight intelligence that allowed him to control opponents both on the feet and on the ground. Mir's UFC debut in 2001 marked the beginning of a career that would define a generation of heavyweights. He quickly made an impact with victories over established fighters, showcasing his submission ability and adaptability in high-pressure situations. One of his earliest standout moments came when he submitted Pete Williams with a technical submission, demonstrating his ability to combine precision, timing, and tactical awareness. His early fights established him as one of the premier submission specialists in the heavyweight division and a contender capable of challenging for the UFC title. In 2004, Frank Mir captured the UFC Heavyweight Championship by defeating Tim Sylvia at UFC 48. This victory marked the pinnacle of Mir's career, showcasing his ability to execute under pressure and capitalize on opponent mistakes. The fight emphasized his mastery of grappling, as he controlled the pace, avoided dangerous strikes, and ultimately secured a submission victory that cemented his place among the elite heavyweights of his era. Mir's championship reign was a testament to his dedication, technical skill, and mental toughness, which allowed him to overcome adversity and claim one of MMA's most coveted titles. Despite capturing the championship, Mir's career was marked by challenges that prevented him from sustaining dominance. Injuries, particularly the devastating leg break he suffered against Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira at UFC 92, created significant setbacks in his career. The injury, a dramatic and career-defining moment, required extensive recovery and rehabilitation, testing Mir's resilience and determination. While he eventually returned to competition, the interruption affected his momentum and his ability to maintain a consistent presence at the top of the division. Mir's career also featured high-profile bouts against the best heavyweights of his generation. Fights against Brock Lesnar, Cain Velasquez, and Junior Dos Santos tested his skill and heart against elite-level competition. In these bouts, Mir demonstrated his characteristic resilience, submission expertise, and strategic thinking, often pushing champions to the limit. While he did not always emerge victorious, his performances showcased a blend of experience, technical skill, and fighting intelligence that made him a perennial threat in the heavyweight division. Throughout his career, Mir's professional record reflects both triumph and challenge. He secured over 18 UFC victories, many by submission, highlighting his grappling dominance and ability to finish fights in decisive fashion. Mir's losses often came against elite-level champions or fighters with complementary skill sets, underscoring the razor-thin margins in the competitive heavyweight division. His ability to remain competitive over decades, despite injuries and the evolution of the sport, speaks to his dedication, adaptability, and enduring skill set. Mir's fighting style is characterized by technical excellence and strategic intelligence. His mastery of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu allows him to dictate the pace of fights, control opponents from multiple positions, and finish contests with precision. Beyond his grappling, Mir developed a well-rounded striking game that complemented his submission skills, including sharp counterpunching and devastating ground and pound. His ability to combine striking, wrestling, and submissions created a unique threat profile that few heavyweights could consistently counter. Outside the octagon, Mir is known for his professionalism, analytical approach, and commitment to the sport. He has been involved in coaching, commentary, and mentoring younger fighters, sharing his extensive knowledge and experience with the next generation. Mir's influence extends beyond his own fights, as his career serves as a model for technical proficiency, strategic execution, and resilience in the face of adversity. His calm demeanor, both in and out of competition, reflects the discipline and mental toughness that defined his approach to mixed martial arts. Frank Mir's story in the UFC illustrates the challenges of sustaining dominance, even for a fighter with elite skills and a championship pedigree. While he reached the pinnacle by capturing the heavyweight title, circumstances, injuries, and fierce competition prevented him from remaining at the top for an extended period. Nevertheless, Mir's legacy is secure due to his technical brilliance, ability to finish fights, and memorable performances against elite opponents. He remains a respected figure in MMA history, celebrated for his skill, resilience, and contributions to the sport. Thiago Santos, nicknamed Moreta, is one of the most dangerous strikers in the UFC light heavyweight division, a fighter whose combination of power, aggression, and technical precision has produced some of the most memorable knockouts in MMA history. Born on January 7, 1984, in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, Santos grew up in a challenging environment that shaped his toughness, resilience, and fighting spirit. From a young age, he gravitated toward combat sports, beginning with Muay Thai and later incorporating Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and wrestling to develop a well-rounded skill set. Santos's dedication to martial arts and relentless work ethic propelled him into professional MMA, where his explosive striking would become his trademark. Santos began his professional MMA career in 2006, competing in regional promotions across Brazil. Early victories highlighted his knockout power, accuracy, and ability to read opponents in striking exchanges. His aggressive forward pressure, combined with devastating kicks and powerful punches, allowed him to finish fights impressively, often in the opening rounds. Santos's early performances laid the foundation for his eventual entry into the UFC, establishing him as a dangerous prospect whose combination of technique and raw power made him a standout in the light heavyweight division. Thiago Santos made his UFC debut in 2013, immediately showing fans his dangerous striking capabilities. He quickly built a reputation for his aggressive style, using precise combinations of punches, knees, and devastating leg kicks to control opponents and dictate the pace of fights. Early victories against fighters such as Dave Herman and Kevin Casey showcased his finishing ability, while his adaptability in the cage highlighted his growing tactical awareness. These performances demonstrated that Santos was not just a power striker, but also a skilled, strategic fighter capable of exploiting openings in elite opponents' defenses. Santos's journey toward the UFC light heavyweight title was marked by rapid ascension and high-profile matchups against top-tier competitors. Notable victories against Eric Anders, Anthony Smith, and Jan Błachowicz showcased his ability to compete with elite athletes. In particular, his fight against Anthony Smith demonstrated his resilience and striking mastery, as Santos overcame significant adversity to secure a dramatic knockout victory, reinforcing his reputation as a dangerous finisher with fight-ending power. These performances positioned him as a legitimate contender in the light heavyweight division, earning him a championship opportunity against one of the sport's best. The defining moment of Santos's career came at UFC 259 in 2021 when he challenged Jan Błachowicz for the light heavyweight title. In this fight, Santos displayed extraordinary courage and skill, nearly securing the championship despite suffering a devastating knee injury early in the bout. Competing with a partially torn ACL, he continued to press forward, landing heavy strikes, mixing punches and kicks with remarkable precision, and showcasing his trademark toughness. While Błachowicz ultimately retained the title via decision, Santos's performance became legendary, highlighting both his technical ability and indomitable spirit. Fighting at such a high level with a significant injury illustrated his resilience and the warrior mentality that defines his career. Thiago Santos's professional record reflects his striking dominance and ability to finish fights. With multiple victories by knockout and TKO, he has consistently demonstrated his ability to end contests decisively. His losses, often against top-level opponents or in highly competitive decisions, underscore the razor-thin margins in championship-level MMA competition. Santos's ability to compete against elite athletes despite injuries and setbacks illustrates his skill, preparation, and mental toughness, making him one of the most respected and feared strikers in the UFC. Santos's fighting style is built around explosive striking, precise combinations, and a fearlessness that allows him to pressure opponents relentlessly. He utilizes a diverse arsenal of strikes, including powerful overhand punches, devastating knees in the clinch, and crushing leg kicks designed to disrupt opponents' movement and endurance. His ability to mix ranges and adapt mid-fight makes him a versatile threat, capable of both aggressive offense and strategic defense. Even when facing champions or elite-level fighters, Santos maintains composure, demonstrating tactical intelligence alongside his knockout power. Outside the cage, Santos is known for his professionalism, discipline, and dedication to training. His journey from regional circuits in Brazil to UFC title contention reflects his commitment to mastering every aspect of mixed martial arts. He has earned respect not only for his performances, but also for his approach to preparation, recovery, and continuous improvement. Santos's story exemplifies the challenges fighters face in elite competition and the dedication required to remain competitive at the highest levels. Thiago Santos's story in MMA illustrates the delicate balance between talent, preparation, and circumstance. While he has achieved recognition and respect for his explosive style and ability to compete with champions, the elusive UFC title has remained just out of reach. His near victory against Jan Blachowicz, particularly while injured, stands as a testament to his toughness, skill, and resilience. Santos's career demonstrates that in MMA, even extraordinary talent and heart are sometimes not enough to secure the championship, highlighting the unforgiving nature of the sport.